When Staff Sergeant Ryan Blackwood landed back in Colorado after 14 brutal months keeping the peace overseas, he expected the smell of pine and his grandfather's famous chili. What he got instead was the sight of bright orange survey stakes stabbing through 3 generations of Blackwood soil like victory flags for the enemy. Aspen Ridge Estates, the gleaming collection of 50 multi-million-dollar mansions hugging the foothills, had just swallowed 800 acres of his family ranch. Sold for a pathetic $2.1 million while he was dodging bullets. The land where his Purple Heart grandfather rested? Now community property, according to the queen bee of the HOA. And that queen bee was waiting for him in his own driveway. Vivian Kensington, 53 years young, stepped out of her white Range Rover wearing cream slacks and a smile sharper than a tax audit. President of the Aspen Ridge HOA for 6 glorious years. She adjusted her oversized sunglasses and spoke with the warm tone of a funeral director. "Welcome home, Sergeant. I trust your service was productive. Unfortunately, civic duties wait for no one. Your grandfather's taxes fell into delinquency. We had no choice but to act for the good of the community." Ryan stared at the chain-link fence already encircling his family plot. "You sold my land while I was deployed. My grandfather is buried there." Vivi waved a manicured hand. "Details, details. The board followed every procedure. Standards must be maintained. That overgrown pasture was an eyesore. Now it's proper landscaping." She didn't know it yet, but she had just poked the wrong hornet's nest. The next weeks were pure HOA hell. Citations arrived daily. Unauthorized livestock odor. Excessive American flag size. Maximum 3 by 5 feet recommended. Visual pollution from ranch equipment. Vivi's neighborhood watch app buzzed with posts about the troubled veteran who clearly needed monitoring for everyone's safety. She even got a restraining order claiming he intimidated her with his military bearing. The local judge, whose wife played tennis with Vivi, approved it in record time. But Ryan Blackwood hadn't survived the desert by panicking. While Vivi was busy measuring grass blades with a digital laser and quoting bylaws like scripture, he drove to the state archives with his last tank of gas. What he unearthed in those dusty files was pure gold. The original 1964 development agreement. When his grandfather sold a portion of the ranch to create Aspen Ridge, he shrewdly retained all subsurface rights, mineral, water, and most crucially foundation and support rights. Everything below 6 feet belonged to the Blackwoods. Forever. Those 50 gleaming mansions? Their basements, foundations, septic systems, and geothermal setups were all technically sitting on Ryan's property. The surface belonged to the homeowners. The ground holding them up. His. He could legally demand they lift their entire multi-million-dollar houses off his dirt. While Ryan was connecting these dots, Vivi doubled down. She hosted community safety nights featuring slideshows of concerning veteran behavior. She fined an elderly resident $350 for having Christmas lights up 3 days past her arbitrary deadline. When people complained about the algae-filled pool, she blamed budget constraints, while her own landscaping company, Green Haven Designs, cashed fat HOA checks. The neighborhood started whispering, then muttering, then organizing. Ryan's quiet workshops at the library on HOA law and property rights went from 5 attendees to standing room only. Margaret, a retired school principal whose late husband helped found the development, became his secret weapon. She dug out the original 1964 covenants from her attic. They explicitly forbade the HOA from land grabs outside the original plat. Vivi's purchase of the ranch land was not just shady, it was illegal under their own rules. The dam broke at the emergency HOA meeting Vivi called to restore order. The community center was packed. Ryan sat in the back with a growing group of fed-up residents, including several other veterans and retirees tired of the tyranny. Vivi took the podium, voice dripping with practiced concern. "Neighbors, we must stand united against outside agitators who don't respect our standards. This veteran simply refuses to accept that progress has arrived." Ryan stood up slowly. The room quieted. "Progress?" he said calmly. "You mean selling stolen land and building on property you never truly owned?" He nodded to his attorney, who projected the 1964 deed onto the massive screen. "These documents prove I hold exclusive subsurface rights beneath every single home in Aspen Ridge Estates. That means every foundation, every basement, every support beam is sitting on Blackwood land. I can require their removal, or fair compensation for the ground you're all living on." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Vivi's face went the color of old oatmeal. Her $750 an hour lawyer started sputtering about frivolous claims. But the room had turned. Margaret stood next. And let's talk about where the money from that fraudulent sale actually went. Vivi's company received a $175,000 beautification contract the very next month. The evidence kept dropping. Improper HOA incorporation, missing funds, forged tax documents. Vivi's desperate attempt to retroactively approve her own crimes only exposed how few people still supported her. Then the FBI agent walked in. Vivian Kensington was arrested right there in her power heels for wire fraud, embezzlement, violations of the Service Members Civil Relief Act, and a host of other charges that would keep her in court for years. As the cuffs clicked, she shrieked, "I built this community. I protected your property values." A veteran in the back called out, "You protected your own wallet, lady." The reversal was total. Within months, Ryan recovered his full ranch. The new HOA board, led by actual reasonable people, rewrote the rules with transparency baked in. No more ruler-measuring tyrants. Ryan offered the homeowners a fair deal on the subsurface rights, well below market, paid over time, because punishing innocent families wasn't the goal. Vivi, however, lost everything: her position, her reputation, her freedom, and faced massive restitution. The Blackwood Ranch stood proud again, rose garden replanted, flag flying high. The community learned a hard lesson about what real standards look like when power goes unchecked. In the end, the woman who spent years choking her neighbors with rules found herself strangled by the very legal system she worshipped. True or false, the HOA president who hid behind community standards was the real power abuser, and she got exactly the karma she deserved.